I'm Greg Grandy, and you've caught me at the end of a major storm. It's been raining for about 3 days now, and I'm starting to get concerned about some of my neighbors. Come on, I'll show you. People build homes called camps out here in the swamp. And being this close to the water, they're sometimes in danger of being flooded. Some people take precautions, such as building high above the water, like my friend Richard. But even being way up there, I know he still doesn't take extreme weather lightly. Hi, Richard. Hey, gang. How y'all doing?
Yeah, we're doing all right. Looks like the storm has gone on by. Matt and I are just checking out the generator just in case. And the girls had been loading the boat in case we had to leave.
Mr. Eisenhart, weren't you worried about the bad weather when you moved here?
Yes, that's why I built on pilings, but I like living here, and I make my living crabbing and fishing.
There are a variety of reasons why we live where we do. Sometimes it's to be near family or where employment's the best. But when people make decisions on where they live or build, they sometimes overlook the threat of severe weather to that region. Studies show that people often don't take into account floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, or desert conditions when they decide where to call home.
Strong northerly winds coming in from the Arctic.
So this low pressure is definitely causing...
Based in Atlanta, Georgia, the Weather Channel is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week network devoted entirely to weather. On camera, meteorologists keep viewers constantly informed of severe weather situations across the country that may threaten lives and impact the environment.
We have warnings currently in effect for...
I'm Dennis Smith, on-camera meteorologist for the Weather Channel. An on-camera meteorologist helps relate the weather information to the viewer out there via the Weather Channel. It is to like 78 million homes across the United States. The Weather Channel receives its information, its database, from a wide variety of sources. Probably the primary source is our own federal government, the National Weather Service, whether it be in the form of taking observations through weather balloons or taking observations at area airports, or perhaps some of the data information that comes out of the National Weather Service. All that's fed into our computers here at the Weather Channel. Probably the greatest advancement in the forecast area has been with Doppler radar and with the technology of satellites. Both those can help see the approach of storms, the individual storm, the structure of the storm, a long time before it actually gets to where you may be. Basically how Doppler works is it sends out a beam of radiation. When it runs into a rain droplet, a hailstone, a snowflake, that's reflected back to the radar. In Doppler radar, it not only measures where the distance is and what type of precipitation, but within the winds, it tells you where it's headed. The satellite technology has come a long way in the recent years, over the last couple of decades, where we can detect things that we couldn't even see before, especially where we don't have a database, where you have an observation at an airport, like out in the middle of the ocean, to see a blossoming tropical storms or hurricanes. We can now get a lot of information via the satellite technology we have today. In addition to what we can see during the daylight hours, we can also see with infrared photography what's going on at nighttime. So it's not just confined to the daylit hours when the sun illuminates the earth and we can see the clouds, but also at night. We can also see the temperature of the clouds to detect whether those clouds are close to the ground or if they're high aloft in the atmosphere, to give us a better idea of how we can put together a forecast. Severe weather really depends on your perspective of where you're at. In Southern California or the West Coast region, severe weather might be mudslides and heavy rainfall. Tornadoes in the plains and in the midsection of the country, snowstorms in the Rockies, floods and heavy rainfall in the Northwest. In the Great Lakes in the Northeast, it might be bitter cold temperatures, life-threatening snow conditions that may trap you inside your home or inside your car. Or perhaps along the East Coast and the Gulf Coast region, it might be one of severe weather and hurricanes. All of it depends on where you're at and what your perspective of severe weather is. No matter where you may reside, no matter where you live, no matter what the elements of the weather may be presented in that area, you need to be able to respond to what's going on there. Whether it's your local radio broadcast, whether it's your local television broadcast, or whether it's your local cable weathercast, the Weather Channel, no matter how you get the information, if it's going to be something that's going to threaten property or your lives, you need to be able to respond on where to go when that event happens.
Because people insist on living in severe weather danger zones, there's more pressure than ever on meteorologists to predict when and where trouble will strike. In the case of deadly hurricanes, evacuations can be ordered by local community officials. Evacuations move people out of their homes and away from the area to avoid predicted danger. Thousands of people were trapped in traffic jams in the summer of 1998 because Hurricane George looked like it would hit New Orleans, Louisiana head-on, and a citywide evacuation was ordered. Roads like this one were choked as millions of people tried to leave the city.
Here's the Tacklebox brain teaser for you. Hurricanes, which were once named only after women, now share male and female names, but they still can't start with which letter of the alphabet. A, the letter Q, B, the letter U, C, the letter Z, or D, all of the above.
Surrounded by levees, New Orleans is built like a bowl, and much of its land is below sea level. The head-on Hurricane George prediction meant New Orleans would have flooded above the rooftops, leaving people no way to escape. An evacuation center was set up in the Superdome. Thousands of people slept in the halls of the giant sports arena. Officials had tried to move an entire city out of harm's way.
So, what letter don't hurricane names begin with? D, all of the above. So sorry, but if your name's Quincy, Uma, or Zoe, you'll just have to be known for something else.
Hurricane George didn't clobber New Orleans as predicted, and many people were angry because they were inconvenienced. Weather watchers were right, however, about the devastation George could deliver. Located off its southeastern coastline, what had once been Louisiana's largest nesting area for brown pelicans was totally erased after a visit from the storm. Other islands were left a fraction of their former size. Aside from the loss of habitat, the destruction of this chain of barrier islands left this part of the state vulnerable like never before to hurricane storm surges. Storm trackers realize they can't promise to know what a hurricane will do, but by studying the conditions surrounding the weather event, they can make a prediction.
Here's a cool demo that uses a hurricane machine to show how hurricanes are formed.
The lights here at the top heats the air inside of the box like the sun heats the Earth's atmosphere.
And the pan of water at the bottom is the ocean that provides the evaporated water.
As a hurricane develops, warm, humid air from the ocean rises and condenses into water drops, releasing heat. This heat warms the surrounding air, making it less dense, causing the air mass to rise even further.
In real storms, as warm air rises, more air flows in, creating winds.
We let more air flow into our hurricane by adjusting the doors.
Even with simple ingredients like humid air and lots of warm tropical ocean water, very few tropical weather disturbances ever make it to the hurricane stage.
You can't see it here, but right in the center is an area of calm known as the eye of the hurricane.
Well, I know this is the closest I ever want to be to a hurricane.
I second that.
In California, meteorologists can alert folks that the hot and dry winds sweeping in from the Santa Ana area are drying forest and chaparral, drying them so much that a touch of lightning can ignite a fire. The winds actually fan the flames, spreading the inferno, destroying wildlife habitats, threatening homes, forcing evacuations, and sending smoke high into the air to drift for miles into neighboring cities. Dr. Harold Brooks with the NOAA National Severe Storms Laboratory in Norman, Oklahoma, works daily studying severe weather events such as tornadoes and how they develop.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA for short, is responsible for the government's interest in the oceans and atmospheres. The mission of the National Severe Storms Laboratory is to do research that improves forecasts and warnings of hazardous weather of all kinds. Our understanding of tornadoes begins with looking at environmental clues that we can get from soundings that we take of the atmosphere, balloons that we launch at about 65 places around the country twice a day that tell us what the conditions of temperature, wind, and humidity are throughout the depth of the atmosphere. And what we look for are some basic conditions. We want to see warm, moist air at the lowest levels of the atmosphere, relatively cool and dry air above that, and then the right kind of wind profile where the winds go from light at the surface to much stronger aloft and typically change direction. Those are the conditions we look for the production of the kinds of storms that can make the most dangerous tornadoes, special kind of a thunderstorm we call a supercell. A supercell thunderstorm is one that has a rotating updraft. It's rotating through almost the entire depth of the storm, maybe from a few thousand feet up off the ground to about 50,000 feet off the ground. And it's that rotation that we can see easily with Doppler radars. Winds blowing away from the radar in the reds, winds blowing towards the radar in the blues and yellows and greens. Forecasters can use these kinds of clues from their radars to issue warnings for people in the path of the storms. Most tornadoes are very short-lived. They may be on the ground for less than a quarter of a mile and maybe only 2 to 3 minutes at the most. And most of them are small, perhaps 50 yards, half of a football field or smaller. The largest tornadoes get up to be a mile wide, though, and may be on the ground for an hour or an hour and a half and travel 60 miles or more along the ground. And it's that upper few percent of tornadoes that cause most of the deaths. 2/3 of all of the fatalities are caused by only 2% of the tornadoes that occur in the United States. Tornado Alley stretches from northwestern Texas through Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and perhaps extends eastward into Iowa. And the reason why this part of the world is so special is because of two geographical things that occur nowhere else in the world in combination. We have the Gulf of Mexico providing warm, moist air at low levels, and the Rocky Mountains providing dry air aloft. And when you get the warm, moist air underneath the dry air aloft, that is the right kind of environment to produce thunderstorms. And the way the winds change, the winds coming from the southeast off at low levels off of the Gulf of Mexico and from the west aloft over the Rockies, we have the kinds of conditions that can produce thunderstorms that rotate. And that's why the central part of North America gets so many tornadoes. The basic rule of thumb for safety in a tornado is you want to get as low as you can and get as many walls between you and the tornado as you can. You want to get low because the wind speeds are lowest near the ground, because the ground provides friction that slows things down. You want to get as many walls between you and the tornado as you can because it's the debris that typically causes injuries and death, not the wind speeds itself. Tornadoes are, by their very nature, rare events. Even at places that are at the peak frequency for tornadoes, they don't happen very often. Tornadoes aren't the kind of thing that you have to live in daily fear of, but they can occur. And if you have a plan, you'll probably only need to really use it once or twice in your life. But that 1 or 2 times that you have to do it, you'll want to be able to do it right.
In 1917, a tornado was reported to have stayed on the ground for over 7 hours as it moved from Missouri to Indiana. Holy mackerel!
Storm shelters have saved lives for years. Newer designs like this above-ground, FEMA-approved safe room are being incorporated into some new home construction. If you're caught in a building without a safe room, studies of the rubble left by tornadoes have shown there are things you can do to better protect yourself. Here at Westmore High School in Oklahoma, students have been trained since kindergarten how to prepare for a tornado at school. Tornado drills are frequent in parts of the country known as Tornado Alley. These students know they have to get into a hall or classroom without windows because tornadoes can throw debris that can break windows and send shattered glass flying. They also know to stay low to the ground. And if they're in a classroom, they know to close all the doors. Pressure changes during the passing of a twister can cause doors to slam with such force they could possibly hurt somebody. And they know not to emerge from their safe place until the all clear is sounded. Tornadoes can sometimes be followed by another funnel cloud or just fierce winds. Seeing the effects of a tornado personally makes you appreciate all of those years of preparation.
Hi, I'm Justin Jones from Westmore High School. I'm a senior there, and we're at my, what used to be my house. Last May 3rd, a tornado hit our city, the city of Moore.
The tornado hit our school probably about 10 after 7 is when it actually hit the school.
I came up here for an awards assembly because I sang in the choir, and the estimated path of the tornado that they were showing was going to come right towards our house. So we figured that we would be safer in the school. Right before the assembly was going to start, our assistant principal at Moore West, he came down and he said that we were now in the estimated path of the tornado.
My dad and I, we were sitting on the bed watching the TV, and the weather guy said that he goes, if you're above ground, you're not going to survive this tornado. And so that's when we started to kind of panic, and I looked at my dad and we ran to the bathroom, we had a mattress for my mom, and we put the mattress over the bathtub so none of the debris would fall on my mom. We sat there and we were ready, doing everything that I had learned how to do, and it finally had hit. You could hear just cracking and popping, and it just sounded like a freight train was coming. You could feel the pressure, and then the wall that I was next to had actually blew away. Right when that wall went out, my feet went out from under me, and the suction power in that was just, I mean, it was amazing. And I felt myself going, and that's when my dad grabbed onto my arm. My feet were in the air, and I was off the ground kind of like a flag. I didn't know what was going to go on, and I just had my dad, and I've never squeezed that tight onto something.
You could hear the wind and you hear it picking up the rocks and stuff and hitting the auditorium, and it was all over in like maybe like a minute. It was really fast, and then we all got up. People were screaming and crying. We were in a room that was right behind the stage, and the roof of the stage had blown off, and the awards and the chairs were all mixed around on the stage. It was surreal. I mean, I was used to seeing the houses and the landscaping and everything, and I came out here and we came out and there was nothing. It was really scary.
Tornadoes happen so often in Oklahoma that scientists thought it was the natural place to study tornadoes. And the information gained might help save lives by making earlier warnings possible, giving people more time to seek shelter. In the early 70s, a team of students and experts from the University of Oklahoma at Norman was formed to chase down tornadoes and measure conditions in and around them, hence the nickname Storm Chasers. There were doubters in the beginning who thought these teams were nuts to run toward the twister while everyone else was running away. But over the years, information gathered by Storm Chasers and the NOAA and National Science Foundation's Vortex project have allowed scientists to document a tornado's entire life cycle. With this data, scientists have gained new insights into how and when tornadoes form. With all the information scientists gather on extreme weather, why do so many people live in places where serious weather conditions can occur?
Florida has the highest number of lightning strikes, but I live in Florida for the beaches and outdoor fun.
Sure, we've been snowed in by blizzards and ice storms before, but we live in the Northeast because my family's had a business here for generations.
Yeah, you get a lot of rain in the South, but you also get warm weather that's perfect for playing softball.
Living in a dry climate doesn't bother me that much. You just have to be prepared and watch how much water you use sometimes.
So you've seen that people seem to figure out a way to deal with extreme weather. They get to know the local weather and hopefully prepare for it, staying informed using all the technology available and some good old common sense.
Knowing evacuation routes,
seeking shelter,
storing emergency supplies for several days,
and not waiting till the last minute. Well, gang, I'd better go check out the bait shop. See y'all later.
visit our Tacklebox website to learn more.